in the sense that I was, I was operating at the time under some mental deficiency, not, momentary mental deficiency or capacity.
The difficult thing, obviously, for people to take on board is the fact that you said that RFK must die by
June
the 5th, and he did.
And he did.
And that is a coincidence that you're asking
to me it was a coincidence, and I realized then the unbelievability of it, and that's the point that I'm trying to put across, that because of that, of the unbelievability of it, that you should consider believing it, because I feel that there was enough evidence to really support my explanation of being in a fugue and being in a dissociated state at the time, to support it. That the idea that it was done with the full requirements of the law for a first-degree murder, I don't think that it was. And having said that, I'm not trying to excuse what I did or trying to diminish the enormity of it. I'm just trying to explain my state of mind at the time, that's all.
And how soon after the events of June the 4th and the 5th did you start thinking that?
I really feel that it was immediately after, while I was going to trial, because at the time of the shooting, I was not really in full control of my senses, Mr. Frost, because I don't feel that a rational, calm, cool, and a person who has his wits about him and is aware of his environment would actually pull a gun and aim it at another human being and shoot at him with the full knowledge that after you finish shooting that person is going to be, dead. I never had that mental capacity to really appreciate that seriousness or that the outcome of my action at the time.
Although you had said RFK must die.
Although I had said that, because I felt that, and the psychiatrists, all of them have agreed that I was in a fugue state, in a dissociated state, and I very much agree with that. If I may relate to you an incident that really bears on this. At the time when we were preparing for my trial, the investigator on my side had asked me to relate to him all that I could remember of that evening. And I recall telling him that I was watching a typewriter operating by itself. And I was really fascinated by it, and it seemed like it was talking to me. And that was all I could remember of it. And after I was convicted and sent to death row, that same investigator came up and visited me and asked me and reminded me of my telling him about that typewriter that was talking to me. As it was talking, and the keys were tapping, and I was reading messages on it. Obviously, I know now, and I knew immediately then that it was a teletype machine. But at the time that I was, looking at it, I didn't snap that it was a teletype machine. And the investigator told me that one of the people who were investigated, who gave depositions to the police on the events of that night, who had said that she had seen me in that area. Obviously, I was in the press room at the time, and she said that she described me as looking dazed, and I remember him telling me that she used the words that I had glassy-eyed, that I was glassy-eyed, and I was sleeping. And to me, it sort of validates my explanation to the court and to everybody concerned that I was not really fully aware of myself even, never mind my environment and my actions then.
I'm Christy Nicola, born July of 1962, rendering me 32 years of age. I was a subject in radiation as well as mind control and drug experiments performed by a man I knew as Dr. Green. My parents were divorced around 1966, and Donald Richard Ebner, my natural father, was involved with Dr. Green in the experiments. I was a subject from 1966 to 1976. Dr. Green performed radiation experiments on me in 1970, focusing on my neck, throat, and chest, 1972 focusing on my chest and my uterus in 1975. Each time I became dizzy, nauseous, and threw up. All these experiments were performed on me in conjunction with mind control techniques and drugs in Tucson, Arizona. Dr. Green was using me mostly as a mind control subject from 1966 to 1973. His objective was to gain control of my mind and train me to be a spy assassin. The first significant memory took place at Kansas City University in 1966. Don Ebner took me there by plane when my mom was out of town. I was in what looked like a laboratory, and there seemed to be other children. I was strapped down, naked, spread eagle, on a table, on my back. Dr. Green had electrodes on my body, including my head. He used what looked like an overhead projector and repeatedly said he was burning different images into my brain while a red light flashed aimed at my forehead. In between each sequence, he used electric shock on my body and told me to go deeper and deeper, while repeating each image would go deeper into my brain, and I would do whatever he told me to do. I felt drugged because he had given me a shot before he started the procedure. When it was over, he gave me another shot. The next thing I remember, I was with my grandparents again in Tucson, Arizona. I was 4 years old. You can see from this experiment that Dr. Green used trauma, drugs, post-hypnotic suggestion, and more trauma in an effort to gain total control of my mind. He used me in radiation experiments both for the purposes of determining the effects of radiation on various parts of my body and to terrorize me as an additional trauma in the mind control experiments. The rest of the experiments took place in Tucson, Arizona, out in the desert. I was taught how to pick locks, be secretive, use my photographic memory, and a technique to withhold information by repeating numbers to myself. Dr. Green moved on to wanting me to kill dolls that looked like real children. I stabbed a doll with a spear once after being severely traumatized, but the next time I refused. He used many pain induction techniques, but as I got older, I resisted more and more. He often tied me down in a cage, which was near his office. Between 1972 and 1976, he and his assistants were sometimes careless and left the cage unlocked. Whenever physically possible, I snuck into his office and found files with reports and memos addressed to CIA and military personnel. Included in these files were project, subproject, subject, and experiment names with some code numbers for radiation and mind control experiments, which I have submitted in your written documentation. I was caught twice, and Dr. Green ruthlessly used electric shock, drugs, spun me on a table, put shots in my stomach and my back, dislocated my joints, and hypnotic techniques to make me feel crazy and suicidal. Because of my rebellion and growing lack of cooperation, they gave up on me as a spy assassin. Consequently, the last 2 years, 1974 to 1976, Dr. Green used various mind control techniques to reverse the spy assassin messages to self-destruct and death messages. His purpose? He wanted me dead, and I struggled to stay alive all of my adult life. I believe it is by the grace of God that I am still alive. These horrible experiments have profoundly affected my life. I developed multiple personality disorder because Dr. Green's goal was to split my mind into as many parts as possible so he could control me totally. He failed, but I've had to endure years of constant physical, mental, and emotional pain, even to this day. I've been in therapy consistently for 12 years, and it wasn't until I found my current therapist 2.5 years ago who had knowledge of the mind control experiments that I've finally been able to make real progress and begin to heal. In closing, I ask that you keep in mind that the memories I've described are but a glimpse of the countless others that took place over the 10 years between 1966 and 1976. That they weren't just radiation, but mind control and drug experiments as well. I have included more detailed information of what I remember in your written documentation. Please help us by recommending an investigation and making the information available so that therapists and other mental health professionals can help more people like myself. I know I can get better. I am getting better. And I know others can too, with the proper help. Please help us in an effort to prevent these heinous acts from continuing in the future. Thank you very much.
Cops pulled John Lennon out and put him into the back of a police car.
He was shot by an unknown, at this time, white male. He was in custody at this time.
Bring me back to December 8th, 1980.
It was a very long day. So I'm sitting there. It's dark. And this limo pulls up. And John got out. And he came up the pathway. And he looked at me. I heard this voice. Not an audible voice, but an inaudible voice saying over and over, "Do it, do it, do it, do it." I guess that was me inside. And I pulled the .38 revolver out of my pocket. I went into what's called a combat stance. And I fired at his back 5 steady shots.
Why did you kill John Lennon?
I thought by killing him, I would acquire his fame.
At his trial, Chapman pleaded guilty and was sentenced to 20 years to life.
And so when I came here to Attica, I'm sitting in my cell and I'm having a tremendous problem. Inner chaos, inner friction, problems connecting thoughts. And it really hit me. I felt like the Lord told me, that's your problem. You have demonic entities within you. You summoned them, buddy. You asked for it, and now we're going to deal with that. And this was real. And when these things came out of me, I could feel them. I could feel them when they came out of my mouth. They were different personalities, and there were different sounds and different languages.
For many, neither Chapman's reasons for killing nor the 2 decades that have passed will ever erase the memory of that terrible night.
El 1 de agosto de 1966, un hombre de 25 años llamado Charles Whitman se levanta, compra un arma y luego sube la torre del reloj de la Universidad de Texas. Durante 96 minutos dispara a toda la gente que puede. Mata a 15 personas y hiere a otras 31, antes que la policía lo enfrente y lo mate. En ese fatídico día, Charles Whitman revela un irrefrenable afán de matar. Parece haber perdido el control. Después de la desenfrenada acción de Charles Whitman, la policía encontró una nota de suicidio. No me entiendo a mí mismo estos días. Se supone que soy un joven promedio, razonable e inteligente. Sin embargo, últimamente no recuerdo cuándo empezó. He sido la víctima de muchos pensamientos inusitados e irracionales. En su nota, pide que se estudie su cerebro.